Hello everyone, welcome to the TriStar Gym channel. Today's episode, I'm doing another AMA. I am answering your questions you guys sent in to Zahabimailbag@gmail.com. If you want to send me your questions, check the description for the email. Special thank you to our sponsor, TimTam.tech. They make the world's best recovery device, the TimTam percussion device, and also now the new TimTam polish. Check it out. Go to our website and check it out. You will love this product. Okay, so let's get started now with the first questions here. First question is from Mohammed. Mohammed asks, do you believe in talent, or would you say that everybody could be the best at anything? For example, boxing. If you put the time and hard work, can you become a world-class boxer, the best boxer of all time? Depending, is it all hard work or do you have to have talent? Well, this is a very, very interesting question. And I have a I have a theory on this. Please excuse my voice. My voice is a little bit out of whack. I do have a very this is an important question. I've asked myself this question many times. I've read many books on training and talent and what is exactly talent. And I will tell you that talent is definitely a factor, no doubt about it. Some people are predisposed to do certain things. Now, some sports require more talent than others. And before you guys object to that statement, give me a chance to make sense out of it. The more rules, regulations, and restrictions a sport has, the more talent, or torque, as I like to say, is involved. So for instance, again, that's just a general rule. Okay, it's not a strict rule. But for instance, let's look at sprinting. How many ways can I win in sprinting? Well, sprinting, I can only win in really one way. Put your foot in one foot in front of the other as fast as you can and get to that finish line first. There are not many options. There are not many possibilities. I can't really outthink my opponent. I can't trick him in any way. So it's purely based on torque, or I would say talent. So for instance, I like to give people a thought experiment. For those of you who know me, I do a lot of thought experiments. I think it's better to give somebody a thought experiment than to explain them step by step the process. Imagine I'm racing Usain Bolt. Me and Usain Bolt are going to race, and we're training from birth. So I'm born on the same day, he's born on the same day. Everything is exactly the same except for one factor. I'm going to have the best track coaches in the world, and he's going to have very, very mediocre track coaches. I'm going to train every single day. I'm going to prep every single day. And he's going to train only 2 or 3 times a week. He's going to do a minimal amount of training. And when we're at the age of 20, we're going to race. So from the age of 2 years old, let's say, I'm training every day. They gave me a head start. They trained me every day, strides, trying to give me, convert my muscles into a fast twitch muscle fibers as much as possible. They're training me from birth. This is an extreme example, right? And I race Usain Bolt. How many of you think that after 20 years of elite sprint training, I can beat a Usain Bolt that had very mediocre training? But he's still trained, but very mediocre. He's fit. He's training 2-3 times a week. How many of you out there believe that I will win that race? And for those of you who don't know, I'm not a fast runner. Okay, I don't have a fast speed. I run like a 400 in well over a minute. Okay, like a minute, I think 15 a minute. So I haven't clocked myself in a long time, but I'm not a fast runner. Okay, I would say I'm an average runner, speed wise. How many of you out there think that I could beat a Usain Bolt? If you think I will lose really badly in a 100-meter race or 400-meter race against a Usain Bolt, I would agree with you. Without ever even doing the experiment, I would agree that Usain Bolt will win. Now, why? He trained less than me. He was less dedicated than me. He has less hours of sprint training than I do. Why does he win? Well, he has more talent. By talent, I mean he's predisposed to this event. Now let's do the same thought experiment, except now we change the sport. It's MMA. In this circumstance, I'm training every day. I have the best coaches. He has mediocre coaches. I'm going to mop the floor with him. Okay? He didn't train as much as me. He doesn't know the positions. He doesn't have the same setups. He doesn't have the same deep understanding of the art. He's going to lose. And he's going to lose bad. Okay, he's going to lose bad. Why? Well, there are more ways for me to win. Torque or talent now is less of a factor. So I would say like sprinting is really, I've watched a documentary of Usain Bolt's training. I saw some of how he trains. He trains well. He trains good. It's not unscientific what he's doing. However, I don't think it's necessarily the best training, personally speaking. I think there are ways that he could even get a little bit faster. And I'm no expert on sprinting, okay, not at all. But I've worked with track coaches. You know, George has track coaches. And I've heard commentators, while I'm watching Usain sprint, I've heard commentators commentating, expert runners themselves, commentating on the technique of Usain Bolt. And again, I'm not an expert in any way, so I can't tell you if they're right or wrong, but they critique his technique. They say, look, he could even be faster, as fast as he is. His technique is not perfect. And the track coaches that I've worked with say, look, his technique is off. They critique his technique. Now, who knows? Maybe Usain Bolt's fallen on a technique that nobody understands. And even the experts think they understand, but they're totally wrong. That's also a possibility. But it wouldn't surprise me because I see the same thing in MMA. I see guys win. They're freaks of nature, but their technique is a little bit off. And I'm of the opinion they could be even better. As good as they are, they could be even better. And I use track and field as an example because I believe that in track and field they have a great saying. We can't make you fast. We can make you faster. So you already have to be fast. I'll just make you faster. If I'm a good track coach, I will make you faster. And I think that that's such a great saying because I've also experienced that. So if you're naturally a powerful puncher, as a coach, I can make you a better puncher. I can make you even more powerful. If you have no punching power, I can only make you punch a little bit hard. I cannot make you a Mike Tyson. I cannot make you a devastating puncher. I can make you a great striker, yeah. Like, for instance, there are great fighters that didn't have a great knockout record. Like, for instance, Mayweather, Dominic Cruz, etc. They don't necessarily finish the guy, but they're great strikers. I will use what you're born with. I will use what you're good at naturally and accentuate it. But in track and field, there's not many things I can do other than get you to put one foot in front of the other. I cannot find other things that you're good at because the sport is so limited to torque. They want to see, by definition, the sport of sprinting. They want to know who has more torque, so to speak, okay? It's not as much technique as there is power. Do you have the power? Now, power, Michael Kogan, in his book, New Power Program, he's a PhD, and he lists the top aspects of power. Where does power come from? Number one on the list, it's not muscle fiber type. You know, there are 4 types of muscle fiber, 2 types of muscle fiber generally, and there's a subcategory as well. He says, look, the number one factor is where your muscle is literally attached, how your muscle is literally attached to the bone. How your tendons and muscles, how the soft tissue is literally attached to the bone. So for instance, if I have a crane, I'm lifting a crane. If I attach the cable here, I'll have more leverage on the crane than if I attach it here. The same goes for the soft tissue. Now, it could be millimeters apart, but it makes a difference. Now, he says that's the number one factor, how the tissue is connected to the bone. Then it's technique, then it's muscle fiber types, and he goes on. I don't remember the exact sequence, but it's a very interesting list that he details in his book. So number one, he would tell you for torque, for power, it's genetics. Number one is genetics. Number 2 is technique. So if we're in a sport that's solely based on power, measuring power, it's going to be very talent-based. Now, if you look at you could tell it's genetic, no doubt about it. The more room there is for me to use trickery, the more room there is for me to have complexity, the more I can use other talents that I might have. I might not have the most torque, but it doesn't mean I'm going to lose in a jiu-jitsu match because I'm the lesser of the two physically. Maybe I'm not as explosive as my opponent, but that's not the end-all, be-all of jiu-jitsu. There are so many other factors. So for me to beat somebody with, for instance, a lot of talent, I would have to have another talent. Okay, so for instance, what I'm trying to say actually is there are different types of talent. Okay, so somebody might be very intelligent. Maybe they say also the same as IQ. They say IQ you can only, again, I'm not an expert in the field of IQ. It's not what I study. Okay, but from what they say, from what I've understood, IQ, you can only change your IQ. You can only make it a plus or minus by 5%, they say roughly. So after a certain age, okay, you're locked in, your IQ is locked in. So they say again, I'm not an expert in this field. From what I understood, if you take a child and you give him a rich environment, you can exhaust his potential for IQ. But you can only take it after a certain period. You can only now, if you train IQ and all that, you can only take about 5 points up or down. So if you don't train, you don't study, you don't practice, your IQ might drop 5 points, or you might increase it 5 points. Now, supposedly, from what I understand, it's locked in when you're young. So if a child is born in a poor environment, in a non-rich environment, he's not stimulated. That's as a thought experiment. He's put in a very bland environment. His IQ won't reach its potential. If you put a child in a rich environment, you're interacting with him, you're talking to him, you're exposing him to many words, different languages, you're exposing him to a rich culture, he's playing with different types of logical games, etc. You're maximizing his potential for IQ. However, just like the length of your arm or the color of your eye, you have a potential. Can you exhaust that potential? Now, IQ in jiu-jitsu helps. Jiu-jitsu is a thinking man's game. Why? There are so many possibilities. You have to compute these possibilities and variations, etc. So a guy who's just muscle, maybe he lacks on the memorizing of the techniques. These are too many things for him to memorize. These patterns are too complicated. So I can take him and drown him in a complex situation that the torque that he has is irrelevant. So what I'm trying to tell you is there are many factors. The more cerebral a sport is, the less torque matters. The less cerebral it is, the more torque matters. Torque and brains are both, it seems from what I understand, I could be wrong, we're always looking for more research, but from what I understand of today's research, your intelligence, you have a potential. Your speed, power, endurance, you have a potential. When you're young, you could exploit that potential, but your potential is still capped. Again, this is what I understand. You're asking me the question here. I'm giving you the best answer I understand. So that's why, I've talked so many times about the book Peter Drucker, Managing Oneself. Look in the mirror. What are your talents and what are your talents? What are you born with? And accentuate them. Exhaust them to the maximum degree. Like for instance, if we look at boxing I would say is like in the middle between torque, like a torque sport like sprinting, 100-meter sprinting, it's all torque. And then you have something like MMA or jiu-jitsu where there's so many possibilities. And then you have kind of boxing in the middle. Boxing, there's a lot of things you could do. It's about like, let's agree on a non-specific, nine types of punches. Let's say there's just 9. Okay. I never made an exact count, but let's say there are 9 really common punches. There are more, but let's just, for argument's sake, okay? There are 9 possibilities, 9 ways to combine them. It's not infinite, but it's many. Now imagine we add kicking to that. Okay, now there are way more possibilities. There are more ways for me to trick you. There are more ways for an intelligent fighter to win over a fighter that's powerful or torque-based. Now imagine we add takedowns. Okay, great. Now imagine we add jiu-jitsu. It gets more and more complex. The more and more complex we make the sport, the more ways I can trick you, the more brains matter. Now, it's not to say that torque doesn't have its place. I believe torque can be very effective, but only because we haven't figured out the problems yet. I think in the long run, in years from now, maybe decades from now, technique will be so refined. Again, this is just a thought experiment. That torque will matter less and less. Why? Because the potential for intelligence, leverage, is exponential. Whereas the potential for genetic strength to increase more than we're doing now today, I think is very limited. The human body has just its physical limitations. However, leverage can be multiplied infinitely. Again, this is something maybe I've gone too far. I've gone too deep, into this topic. But I think jiu-jitsu is getting more and more sophisticated at an exponential rate. That the moves the moves we're doing today are very different than the moves 5 years ago. And I've been around jiu-jitsu for 20 years. 20 years ago, the moves were primitive. I'm sorry to tell you. They were really, really primitive compared to what we have today. Just the back attacks, the way we attack the back it's light years of. If I wrestled myself, the guy I was 10 years ago, I would beat that guy easy. Why? He doesn't know half the submissions I know today. The variations of jiu-jitsu are growing so exponentially that in the future of MMA, I think jiu-jitsu is going to be like really the dominant sport. Really the dominant sport. Why? We're going to have implemented different type of takedowns. Yes, different takedowns, jiu-jitsu type takedowns. And we're seeing it already, shooting, pulling into a leg lock, all these crazy things that are going to be just so refined in 10, 15, 20 years from now. Because jiu-jitsu is just getting so much more powerful so quickly. We're going to have new ways to guillotine. We're going to have new ways to underhook. We're going to have jiu-jitsu is just such a growing sport. The stuff I learned in boxing 20 years ago are still the staples today. Jiu-jitsu has not been exploited. It has not exploited its true potential. Wrestling's been around a lot longer, freestyle wrestling. Countless countries have refined it already. I mean, we are like at the cutting edge of wrestling technique. We're at the cutting edge of judo. We're at the cutting edge of striking. It's been done so much more than jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is just becoming popular now, mainstream. The next generation of jiu-jitsu practitioners are going to be, in my opinion, fascinating to watch. And it's happening today. I mean, just last year, from this year to last year, I learned so many different refinements to the darce and to the guillotine. It's just never ending. Every time we go to New York, visit New York, the new stuff that they come up with is just amazing. And it's not the case with the wrestling coaches. I work with so many wrestling coaches. It's still almost, yes, we're refining, but not to the same level as jiu-jitsu. So all this to say that I think if you have a great trainer and you work hard in the realms of jiu-jitsu and MMA, it's more about hard work and dedication than in boxing and in sprinting. Boxing and sprinting, where the sport is really measuring torque and power we can increase, but I cannot make you into a Usain Bolt. There's no trainer alive that can take an average runner from what we know today. Maybe in the future we'll make a new discovery. Maybe there was something we've overlooked. But when it comes to torque sports, when it comes to how much can you lift, how high can you jump, how far can you throw, this is very talent-based, very extremely talent-based. The more there's possibility for the mind, the more the possibility there's for trickery. The more there is possibility for other types of talent. And you have a certain talent. Of course, everybody has a talent. I believe everybody has some type of talent. But if the sport doesn't allow you to use that talent, you're gonna sink. Okay, so I think MMA is really allows people, because in my opinion, everybody's born to fight. Everybody's born to defend themselves somehow, but differently. Look at how many MMA champions became champion using a different method. Not using the same method as another champion, for instance. All right, I think I beat that point to death. Sorry if I rambled on. Next question here is your thoughts on law of attraction. Law of attraction here, you're saying the secret. Now, I've talked about this before, and I get this question a lot, and I'm sure I'm going to have to answer this question a bunch more. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't know much about The Secret. I've had people send me the links and the videos and the books. I've never read the book. I've had people send me the book. I just cannot wrap my mind around it. I've had the first argument be put forth to me that there's a certain charge to the universe. The universe has a certain charge. So if your mind or your thoughts are of a certain charge, they attract these things in the universe. Sorry if I'm butchering the first premise. I listened to it years ago, like maybe literally 6-7 years ago. For those of you who practice The Secret or know The Secret, please put a link in this description. I'll take the effort to learn for the central premise. But and again, apologies if I'm butchering something that somebody out there holds to be true. Put a link in the description and I'll listen to it and I'll try to do it justice in another video. But from what I understand, that you can attract, just with your thoughts, you can attract something good or bad into your life. I don't know if there's any proof to this, but if I had to cross-examine it, I would have a few objections. And my first objection, again, this is from an objection on somebody who knows nothing, almost nothing about The Secret, is what would we say about all those children that suffered? You know, in philosophy we have something called the problem of evil. It was said about by Epicurus. Epicurus was very famous for bringing about the problem of evil. So what would you say about a baby that dies at a young age from cancer? Was this child aware of cancer? Did he have thoughts of cancer and cancer came to him? Or maybe it was his parents. So can I bring about something evil to someone else? What about entire nations? Like, for instance, the nation of, the Japan, when they dropped the Hiroshima bomb. Was everybody in Japan aware of nuclear forces? Did they know about it? Did they think about it? I mean, I'm sure that this... I don't know if The Secret has scholars, or I don't know how far this actually goes, but I'm sure they've addressed these type of problems. I'm sure there are answers to this. I'm sure these objections have been put forth in the past. I couldn't imagine that they're not. And I'm sure that people who believe in The Secret have answers to these. So please put them in the description. And I'll try to do my best to find them and listen to your objections. And I'm sure there are videos out there explaining them. I haven't come across it. So I'm trying to be as fair as possible to this theory. But for me personally, I don't believe in it. I haven't found evidence that shows me, that tells me that you can think about something and bring it to you, attract it to you. Now, I have read the book As a Man Thinketh. I'm forgetting the name of the author now. And I do believe that how you think, absolutely, how you think, absolutely, changes the way you see the world, but also how you behave. And my behaviors are dependent on the way I think, and my behavior, my actions, will allow me to step closer to my goal. But I don't believe that just thinking will attract something to me. No, not necessarily. No. Now, if you're saying I'm praying for something and you're hoping a higher power brings you something, okay, that's a different story. But just thinking, and that there's a magnetic approach, that I'm thinking and I'm getting my thoughts to the same magnetic field that's going to bring this argument. I just have never seen any actual proof for it, empirical proof. So again, if somebody has a link or a description, but I do believe that your thoughts affect your actions, and your actions become habits. Yes, this I believe dearly. Your thoughts affect your actions. They push you to do certain actions. And your actions become habits. This I believe wholeheartedly. So, but I don't believe this is the law of attraction. The law of attraction, from what I understand, is you just think about millions of dollars, and somehow, some way, the universe will bring you those millions of dollars. I have yet to see a billionaire claim that that's how he made his money, or a millionaire claim that's how he made his money. Next question. Let me see on how we're doing on time. Okay, we're doing good on time. I think this will be the last one. Mr. Zahabi, this one is from Bence. Bence asks, my question would be, what would your advice be to improve reflexes, hand speed, reaction time, and defense, blocking slipping punches in MMA striking, mainly in boxing situation? I get hit a lot and I'm planning a lot on long term. So this change has to happen immediately. So you're saying you want to box for a long time, and your defense is poor, and you want to stay in the game. Yeah, it's a very good. You don't want to end up with no brain cells. I like that. Very smart. Very smart. Um, Listen, I'm not a big believer in reaction time games. Like some people do all sorts of things, like bounce the ball towards me and I'm gonna catch it. And it's gonna speed up my reflexes. I don't think these things are bad. I just don't think that the greats did them a lot. Now you can find a video of some great fighter doing something with a reaction speed, but that's a very limited amount of their training. If you look at the bulk of their training, 90% of their training was not speed reaction. So I really think it's okay to do some amount of reaction drills, and there are a variety of them. I don't particularly believe in many of them. I just think the vast majority of them are just fun to do when you just can't do any more boxing training because you're fed up of it, right? You need to do something else. You want to keep active. But today I just really don't feel like boxing. I've been boxing every day for 40 days in a row, with one day off on the weekend or whatnot. And today I just really, I'm sick of boxing right now. Yeah, do these games, get these reaction games going, have people throw you a tennis ball and kind of slipping it up against the wall. There are so many different fun games. Make it fun. Training is about motivation, so if it's fun for you, do it. It's a good secondary type of training. But in my opinion, the best way to learn how to slip punches is to go out there and do slipping drills. And once you're good enough to do slipping drills, spar. But don't spar hard. I'm not a big believer in hard sparring. You got to make sparring playful and fun, like the way the Cubans do, and just slip punches. And by doing it thousands and thousands of times, you're going to figure out how to slip punches in a way that works for you, and that works for your attributes, that works for a particular situation. And that's how you're going to increase your reflexes. And as you're sparring at a higher and higher speed, your reflexes are gonna adapt. I don't believe that, some people tell me, oh, try this app. It measures your reaction time and drill it. I think your reaction time will increase in that app. But then when you go to slip a punch, you're going to get hit. There's a training principle in exercise science called the SAID principle. Specific adaptation to imposed demand. So you're going to get better at what you do. So if let's say, for instance, you're going to adapt specifically to the demand you're putting on your body. So if I'm throwing a 10-pound ball, I want to throw it at a greater and greater distance. I'm a shot putter. I don't know how heavy the shot put is, but I'm assuming, let's say it's 10 pounds. I'm sure it's heavier even. I will get more and more powerful at shot putting if I shot put a lot. Now, if I swing a racket and hit a tennis ball, I do that over and over again. I will get better at swinging a racket to hit a tennis ball. It says the principle claims that you will get specifically good at whatever stimulus stress you put on your body. Now, of course, we're going to aim for super compensation. We're going to make the tennis ball come at us a little bit faster than it would. So we have a machine fire it. If I'm an expert and hitting at human speed is too easy for me, I'm gonna create a machine where the tennis ball comes up a little bit faster towards me than any human can hit. If I can hit that one, I can hit anybody's serve. Or for instance, somebody will play ping pong and they'll use a smaller racket. Why? Because if I can hit it with the smaller racket, I'll have super compensation and I'll be able to hit with a bigger racket even easier. These things are also true. So some people claim, look, you don't need to do anything outside of your sport. Just do the sport. I don't agree with this 100%. I think that there will be a time where you'll have overuse injuries. Because you only do your sport, certain muscles will atrophy. And this will create a type of imbalance. Now again, this is stuff deep in the literature. It's hard for me to give examples. But at the end of the day, look, keep it simple. 80% of the time, do your sport. 20% of the time, do outside activities. Why? It complements your sport. It trains muscles that don't get a lot of physical training. Muscles that might atrophy. So for instance, let's say you're a boxer. 80% of your training should go. Let's say you're going to train 100 hours a year, or whatever. Let's say you're going to train 10 hours a month. Let's just say, okay? 8 of those hours make it boxing. 2 of those hours, swimming, running, jumping, reflex drills, all that other good stuff. Keep it that simple. That would be the right balance. Why? Because it's true. If you just grapple all the time, eventually your shoulder's going to wear out. Your neck's going to wear out. Why? You're doing the same movement over and over again. It's called overuse injuries. So when we do 20% of complementary work like pool and jumps and shot puts and medicine ball tosses, it's a therapeutic to the body. Why? You're firing muscles that are usually not firing. And those muscles, because they're being woken up, the idea is they'll start assisting you in your sport. Your body will start to use those, it's learning to use those muscles. Again, hasn't been proven thoroughly. It's just by observation. We've noticed that people that do some GPP, general physical preparation, so that means outside of their sport. So you have sports physical preparation, doing your sport. So if you're a soccer player, doing soccer drills, running up and down with the soccer ball, everything that's soccer oriented, that will be SPP. Then we have GPP, general. That's when you're lifting weights, you're doing plyometrics, you're jumping hurdles, you're doing outside of your sport. You're doing a complementary sport. We've noticed as trainers, generally when we come together and we discuss, when we do a little bit of that, our fighters, our athletes seem to be healthier. They seem to have less overuse injuries. Overuse injuries meaning, listen, I grabbed the gi so much, my fingers are breaking. Now I got to tape them up. My fingers are broken. When I grab the gi now, it's like I've been grabbing it so long, so many hours, and my fingers are brittle. It does happen. These things happen. Okay, so you're a wrestler, your neck is aching. Why? You're getting snapped down every day. You're shooting double legs. You're driving with your neck. We need a 20% complementary training that rebuilds the body. And as trainers, when we come together, we change our experiences. We discuss our experiences in the practice room. A lot of us have come to the understanding that doing 20%, roughly 20%, is not an exact figure, but a small amount of training that's therapeutic. Like I like to work with stretch bands. I like to work like elastic bands. I tie them up to a pole or a fence and I like to pull on them. And I find that keeps my shoulders healthy, my back healthy, my legs healthy. I like doing mobility. 20% of my training is outside of martial arts. I've been doing it a long time. My body's very, very healthy. I've been following this formula for a long, long time. And sometimes I do reflex drills. Why? Because I'm just so sick of I cannot do another armbar today. I need a break today. Today I'm not doing arm bars and chokes. I'm not doing punching and kicking. It happens. I have days like that. Okay. What am I going to do? Today I'm just going to go in the gym. I'm just going to do hurdles. I like doing hurdles. It's fun. Today it's fun. Do hurdles. Maybe do a little bit of weights, swing a kettlebell. That'll be my training for the day. And then I get a thirst again for jiu-jitsu and boxing. I didn't wrestle for 2-3 days. Well, I get that thirst. Now again, this is, maximum, in my opinion, 20%. Sometimes it's 5% of my training. Sometimes it's only 2%. Sometimes I just go into a kick. I'm working back control, or I'm working boxing. I'm on a kick of boxing, whatever. I go through a patch. So these trainings, keep them minimal. They're not as effective as you think. If I give you the most sophisticated reaction time training, and you do it for years and years, and then you come into boxing, it's not going to work. In my opinion, it's just not going to translate that well. Or at least I should say, I haven't seen any evidence of that. So if anybody has a study, please share it with me. I'm very open to it. I just honestly, personally, haven't seen anybody. Like for instance, if you look at ping pong is such a high reaction time sport. It's such a high reaction. Ping pong is crazy fast. Look at it. Go on YouTube. Look at professional ping pong players. Man, they're fast. Man, it's incredible. And when I used to train with a lot of Olympic wrestlers, some of them will play ping pong. I'm like, why do you play ping pong? It's good for my reaction time. Reaction time. And I think if you put a world-class ping pong player, and they're in good shape, ping pong players, believe me, they're in good shape, and you teach them boxing, I don't think you'll see a glaring difference in the reaction time. Again, I haven't really done this experiment, but I would love to do it actually. And if I'm proven wrong, believe me, I'll start playing ping pong. I'll become a ping pong player. I think it would help if you do it once in a while, but it won't take you to a Muhammad Ali level. To get there, you need a specific training, and that's boxing itself. All right, guys, I have gone over the limit, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please send me your questions at Zahabimailbag at gmail.com. I'll do the best to answer your questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you.
Bonjour, mon nom est Marc-Élie Toussaint, je suis entraîneur de sprint depuis 23 ans. Je travaille au niveau de la vitesse avec Georges Saint-Pierre depuis 4 ans. Je viens de tester le Tim Tam, c'est le meilleur instrument au niveau du relâchement musculaire que j'ai testé de toute ma carrière. Je le recommande à tous.
When you train a lot, you get tight. The best way to loosen up your muscle is the Tim Tam. Hi, I'm Georges Saint-Pierre. I'm using the Tim Tam machine after my training to help me with my recovery.